Maybe you are looking for a game that will take you a long time to play. I'm talking about games that will take you 100 hours or more to complete. Today we have 10 games that will definitely take you a lot of time. If you're a fan of going platinum, or you're just interested in learning as much as you can about the game and going all the way through it, today's single-player games will keep you busy for a long time. I promise you that. Starting in 10th place is Mount & Blade 2, Bannerlord. There are two series of games that were played by almost everyone in my neighborhood. Regardless of age, it was Corsairs and Mount & Blade. Corsairs remained in pleasant childhood memories, but Mount & Blade, with the release of the new part, is experiencing a second youth. Mount & Blade is not like the other games. It is a hybrid of genres, which included several genres at once. First of all, the action slasher with 4 directional strikes reminds me of For Honor. Also, a battle management simulator like Total War, a world simulation and with a turn-based move system. It's all seamlessly woven together and is interesting to play. The game can be completed in 60 hours on average, depending on how you play. That's just the main plot, but here's all the other activities you'll be doing that can take up a ton of your time, meaning that you'll spend a lot of time strategizing and planning your battles, and then more time implementing. And it's not a given that you'll win a protracted battle, but there's a bunch of other things besides that. You're going to have to simply live in this world. You will have to be responsible for gathering your army, understand politics, produce weapons, understand trade and economics, and convince people to fight on your side. You'll be able to keep yourself busy for hours before moving on to multiplayer, or mods, or whatever else the developers keep adding to the game. These games make you think and put a good strain on your meanderings. It's a medieval sandbox-style game, but that's rare in this day and age. Once you get into this game and understand what it's all about, it can easily become addictive, so be careful with it. The first bonus game on this list is Red Dead Redemption 2. By far the best and most elaborate game, the incredibly huge world of the Wild West is diverse, beautiful, and open to explore. In it you will find gambling, horse breeding, a great number of quests from strangers, shootouts, like in westerns, and movie-cool storyline, piercing on a stingy man's tears, forbidden realism of graphics. Despite the fact that the game is 6 years old, it looks just amazing. I warn you to save a lot of time, at least, because the main storyline is passed for 60 hours. This is on average, without any quests and other side activities. I will not stop repeating that Red Dead Redemption 2 is a masthead, and every self-respecting gamer should definitely play it.
Easy, with a bit of yarn and blood of your own. But first, you'll need a contract.
In 9th place is Bloodborne. It depends a lot on how good you are at Souls-like games. I mean, if you're a master or a speedrunner, of course you'll get through the game faster. But if you consider the difficulty, plus the DLC, you will spend a lot of time in this game, because the main game is incredibly long and difficult. A full playthrough of the main game is at least 70 hours, and depending on how you play Souls-like. Next you will have the DLC walkthrough, which will take you quite a bit of time. You will especially spend a lot of time going through the underground bowl. There are players who still spend tons of time there, and if the game hooks you, you will spend many hours with this game. Also, according to most fans of Souls-like games, Bloodborne is still considered one of the best in the genre. I understand people who are still dreaming that this game will be released on PC, and optimizations will be fixed, because there are really problems with it. I also hold out hope that From Software Studio will make us happy in 2024 with a PC release, and I will finally be able to play this masterpiece with the most comfortable FPS possible. But otherwise, the styling in the game, the boss designs, the mood, the atmosphere, nothing can compare to Bloodborne. If you've ever talked to a Dragon's Dogma fan, you probably already know what this is all about. Every person who plays Dragon's Dogma raves about this game, and thinks about this game all the time. And you know, there's a reason for that. Let the game is old, but it's still no less interesting, which is worth the time spent. You can expect a mixture of Dark Souls and Skyrim with unique mechanics, open world, very sneaky enemies, interesting boss fights. I advise you to spend time in the game, and I think you will like it. This is a terrific world in which you can get lost for a very long time. If you are a fan of fantasy role-playing games, or even if you are not really into fantasy role-playing games, you should play it, especially because it's a Capcom edition and it's a bit of an unconventional fantasy RPG. Yes, there are knights, dragons, wizards, everything in the fantasy canon, but there's a touch of Capcom and more Japanese influence. It's just an incredible gaming experience. Capcom fantasy is something out of the ordinary, believe me. This game found its audience for a reason. We can talk for a long time about what this game is good for, but I want to describe my impression of it in the following words. Do you remember that feeling in your childhood when you wanted to get home from school as soon as possible to play a game? I remembered that feeling years later, and now I was waiting not from school, but from work to launch Kingdom Come, and I didn't even want to do other usual things. I was planning what quests I was going to do, what settlement I was going to go to, or what places in the game world I was going to explore to wander through the beautiful living forests. By the way, this is one of the few games in which I just had a pleasure to walk, and in general to be in this world. This game has the most realistic take on the Middle Ages as far as I'm concerned. How cool they have rendered these medieval towns, villages, culture, battles. Here you transform from a poor peasant to a badass knight, but it takes a while. But if you go through the games 100% and want to check out all the DLC and content, there's a good chance you'll spend over 100 hours on the entire playthrough. I mean, when you get distracted from the main quest and do side quests. The main quest keeps you busy for a long time, but when you add all this extra content on top, it can lead to a significant increase in playtime. The game has gotten a lot of positive feedback from the community over the years. Of course we will have The Witcher 3 on this list. After all the ports, re-releases and the like, what else can we say about The Witcher? The Witcher 3 is just a fantastic role-playing game. It is a huge open world in which you want to get lost, really immerse yourself in this world, culture, fantasy, elements based on classic Polish novels. A game that needs no introduction, a true masterpiece that has stood the test of time, which every self-respecting player must play and experience. There are also DLCs that make the game even longer. The Stonehearts add-on, which will probably give you about 10-15 hours of additional play, and of course the massive expansion Blood and Wine, which opens up a whole new area, a whole new world, and it will probably take you about 30 hours more. That's me not talking about the main game, which is so massive that there's a lot of people who never got through the main game. You know, The Witcher 3 is kind of like Skyrim, where you just wander around and forever doing side quest one after another, and then you remember that you completely forgot about the main story. I'm still amazed at the people who let this masterpiece of the decade pass them by. In fifth place comes Divinity, Original Sin, the first and second part. These games are simply great and incredible CRPGs that everyone should try. At the moment, Larian Studios is the most legendary developers of turn-based RPGs. The game has become a classic RPG. You want to play it for a long time, and it will give you just such an opportunity. Cool turn-based battles, dialogues, story, game world, everything is on the level. Sometimes it seems even too high level. There is so much here that you need to dive into this game world with your head. But isn't that why we love the best games? These games have incredible depth, pretty massive interesting worlds, lots of well-written and interesting dialogue and quests. The game just takes into account absolutely everything you do, and every action will ultimately affect the ending, even the seemingly most innocuous decision you make. Of course you can play them with friends, but playing alone, you will spend a huge amount of time in them. These are the games that set a new standard for classic RPGs, thanks to their incredible depth, complexity, and interactivity. Dragon Age. Inquisition is the kind of game that still has its large cult of followers and fans. People have fallen in love with Dragon Age ever since the original first installment was released, but for a lot of people, Inquisition was what really pulled them into that world, for real. I don't know what it was about this particular installment that hooked them the most. Maybe it's the bigger world that you can explore for a very long time, the ability to build your own city, your memorable companions, some characters you directly get into and fall in love with. This game has a lot of cool, exciting quests, branching storylines, and interesting dialogues. All in all, you get a simply unforgettable gaming experience. You can easily spend 100 hours or more. Yes, you can only go on the main quest and it doesn't take that much time, but it's really about immersing yourself in this world, exploring it, and going through all the extra content that the developers have added for you. You have DLC that adds at least a few dozen hours, which means you can spend a lot of time here. I understand people who are just raving about the next Dragon Age release and waiting for it like manna from heaven, because it's very easy to get hooked on this game and fall head over heels in love with it and spend a lot of time in it. It's 2024. and the gaming industry has degenerated to the point of complete, primitivism, with the exception of a few games, of course. At the moment, this game is just a masterpiece for all times against the background of everything else. Fortunately, this game exists, and you should definitely play it, even in spite of its graphics. This is a newly released RPG based on the Dungeons & Dragons board game. It's a love letter from Larian Studios, made with such heart and love that it's destined for success. I wasn't a fan of this kind of game before its release. I won't hide it. I'm not versed in the Dungeons & Dragons universe. I don't like to read much about classes and abilities, and in general, if I'm honest, in general reading in games. Basically, this game epitomizes everything I didn't love, but it's done in such a way that it's definitely one of my favorite games. The developers did an unreal job. They listened to their community, improved the game, and achieved a perfect balance without stuffiness. As far as I'm concerned, they were able to attract people to this game who had no idea they could play games like this. Even after release, they continue to only improve the game, and it's very cool. Even though I've played the game for over 200 hours, it continues to amaze me. To everyone who hasn't played it yet, make sure to put it on your list of games worth playing at least once in your life. The game has so many different endings, and to see all of them, I'm afraid to imagine how much time you'll need. Elden Ring is the pinnacle of the evolution of Dark Souls' core ideas. It's bigger, deeper, and more diverse than any previous From Software work, but despite the incredible scale, it has not lost its signature handwriting of the masters of the genre. Among the advantages are an interesting open world, great design, quality level design, a lot of colorful situations, and a deep role-playing system. The game takes a long time to get through, whether you're just trying to get through the main story or get distracted by side stuff. The hostile world here is an unplowed field to explore, no markers for you, no hackneyed clues, and no driving by the pen. Just you and this mysterious and dangerous world. Passing the story, along with exploring caves and other secluded places, will take you at least 100 hours. The gameplay of Elden Ring is a good compilation of all the previous Miyazaki's creations. It's a kind of hodgepodge, but now in the open world. A lot of bosses of different complexity, beautiful locations, rare clothes, unique weapons, ashes, and of course the trademark jagged narration. Unless you live somewhere in the backwaters of civilization, you've probably already heard about this game, and I'm not even talking about the planned DLC. We don't know when exactly it will come out, but chances are the expansion will add even more hours of gameplay, add a new location, new bosses, and more blazing fifth points. But that's why we love Souls-like, so yes, we wait for the DLC. In the first place, we have The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. The game gives players hundreds of hours of gameplay because it has so much content that there is a risk of falling out of real life. The main plot, battle with bosses,
Link!
Was that the sword that seals the darkness?
research and craft the most unimaginable mechanisms, so bizarre that the compilation of such creations created by players collects millions of views on YouTube. Boundless open world, hiding a lot of secrets and adventures. And this is only a small part of the available content. In addition, the game provides a lot of unique mechanics, on the basis of which allows you to solve most of the game tasks creatively and very unconventionally. The Legend of Zelda immerses you right from the first minutes, and there is always something to do. It's also a technological masterpiece that somehow managed to fit and work perfectly on Nintendo's not the most powerful handheld console. The game will pull you in for a long time. Even if you are not a fan of such cartoon style, just give the game a chance. The second bonus game we have will be Skyrim, and what can you do without it? Skyrim is a classic, and you should already know that. The legendary RPG came out over 10 years ago, and gamers still spend hundreds and hundreds of hours in it to this day. A great story company, a huge live, Detailed open world and deep lore. Full freedom of action, within reason, of course. The atmosphere is incomparable to anything, flexible heroes pumping, variability of passage, and of course the proverbial soul. Yes, this game definitely has it. That's why it is loved.